Hello, this is Sarah V, and today I need to make a dress to wear to a wedding. I was going to make it out of that purple fabric, but then I decided otherwise, and I ended up buying some fabric on Fabricmart, even though I didn't really want to buy fabric, but I figured because it's for my friend's wedding, it's fine, because it's not like I'm buying a dress. So, and I'm making it. If I wasn't making it, I guess I would be buying a dress, so. The pattern is Simplicity 1092, and I made this pattern for my college graduation. I did the short sleeve version, and this pattern will also cover up both my farmer's tan, and I have these two strips on my back from a tank top I was wearing when I was trying to correct my farmer's tan. So it should cover that. The fabric I am using is Fabricmart. It is a rayon Swiss dot kind of crinkle fabric, but I figure the rayon has much better drape than a quilting cotton. It's a little dressier than a quilting cotton because it is I think the dress code was semi-formal, dressy casual. So I think that will do. And she also had a list of colors that if you wanted to follow the color scheme you could, and yellow was on there, and especially with all the large pink flowers on it, I think it'll be fine, especially even though it's a darker yellow. It's not very white. So if it was plain yellow, I think I'd be a little worried. But But since it was on the list of colors, that also reassures me. Otherwise, I would have went with a different color. But the dress I made for my college graduation, I would wear, but it is actually white. So that's a no. But I still really like it. I still wear it. And it is also rayon. Although I will say, this pattern with like 54-inch fabric still takes 4 yards. So. And also this time, I think I'm going to properly grade up the bodice, which I didn't before. The skirt, my kind of haphazard method worked fine, but for the bodice, I think now it would be better to grade it up properly instead of just adding where I need to add it. Because I would just add at the waist because it was too short, probably because it was the wrong bust size. So there's that. So that's on what I have to do. Need to grade up this bodice properly because this is a bust. The pattern is a bust of 30 and I am a bust of 36, so that's just not going to do. But yeah, and that would help with the dart placement and everything. So I'll have to do that later. I have a lot to do later because it is Wednesday and the wedding is on Sunday. So I need to get this dress out. But I also need to get the video finished for my white blouse. This is where the blouse is currently at. It still needs hemmed. Needs the buttons in the buttonholes. And I think I just got to tack that up. But this video needs to go up not Friday, but Saturday morning. So it'd be nice to finish this before then, so I have time to finish the editing. There's not that much that needs done, so I should be able to get it done. But I also got sidetracked. Don't mind my washcloth I made. I need to sew it up. But then I also got sidetracked on Sunday, and it's really wrinkly. But when I was in college, I traced out all of the slopers that my professor had in case I wanted to open a dress shop or something someday. You know, just things I thought in college. And I know the skirt's going to be fine because it's the right waist size, so it should be fine. That's why I don't really care. It's just I just cut it out of these polyester sheets I got at the thrift store. But this is cut out of, I think, like a poly cotton. And I know the bodice is going to be way too big across the bust, so I need to sew this up at some point. But that, I think, is a problem for next week, because I don't have time for that this week between finishing that blouse and sewing this dress up for Sunday. So there's that. But it needs sewn up, and I think I'm just going to put a zipper down the back and then try it on and see where I can take out space for the bust, because it's measuring like 40 inches across, which is like 4 inches too many in the bust. So that will be fun to work through. I did in fact forget how much of a fabric hog this particular pattern is, and I did try to iron this the best of my ability, but because these edges got really crinkled up in the wash, you can't really take all the crinkle out because this is crinkle fabric, but it can't exactly be all scrunched up when it comes to cutting it out. But I added on to the skirt because when I first made it, the skirt ended up being slightly smaller than the top, even though I added the same amount of seam allowance on, and I ended up having to kind of stretch the skirt into the top, which I didn't really want that. So I actually measured it this time and made sure it was going to be the same amount. And I laid this out, and I have to move the orientation because it needs to be folded the other way because of how wide these pieces are. These side pieces are so wide, and there's 2 in the front and 2 in the back. Most of this fabric consumption is just in the skirt. So I have to move that, which I'm super excited about. I also did some interesting stuff when it comes to grading the pattern because I didn't want to start from scratch. And today is Saturday, so the wedding is tomorrow. So I need to get this all cut out, and hopefully this is fine because instead of grading it properly, because I know it still fits me, just barely, but I would like to be able to wear it comfortably. So I added to the shoulder like you would grading it up. And since I have it added in the middle, I think the dart placement will be fine and I won't have to move the darts over, and I have the side in too. But it should fit. We'll see. If it ends up slightly big, I can make it smaller, but it's harder to make stuff larger, so we'll see how that goes. But I'm just super excited to relay out the fabric. But I need to cut it out, and then after I cut it out, sew up the skirt and let it hang for as long as I can before assembling it. Just because I don't have a whole lot of time to let it hang overnight now. because getting my video edited last night took more time than I thought it would. So I basically had to change the direction I had the fabric in and fold it, and luckily it fits widthwise on my cutting table, but also folded to this length I have it at. I can just barely fit the pieces on the table. If the pieces were any longer, it wouldn't work out. But thankfully, this time making the dress, I could use my cutting table because the first time I made this dress, it was pre-cutting table. And it was much more delightful to cut this out, not on the floor. So there's that. I also made up my mock-up for my slopers. I didn't end up sewing up the skirt one because I figured I don't really make a lot of fitted skirts. I couldn't tell you the last time I made a fitted skirt. Probably college. So, and if I want to, I have those pieces cut out, I can give it a try. And it's mostly, it'll fit at the waist, but I'm going to reckon if anything needs to change, it'll just be shave a little bit off the hips. So there's that, because I think that's something I had to do the first time I made my slopers back in college. So nothing major. But I don't, like I said, I don't usually make fitted skirts. But it would be really nice to be able to make some patterns. And I made the mock-up, tried it on, and when I was pinning out what needed to leave because the bust was too big, I pinned it out, then I took it out. And then since it was curved, I couldn't really, I was having a hard time translating that to the paper and ended up having to do a small bust adjustment to the paper, which took out the exact same thing that I was trying to take out, but it took it out in a more uniform manner for doing it on paper, I guess. So everything is cut out now, and unfortunately I ran out of storage while filming and I did not realize it, so I don't have any footage of anything past cutting out the skirt, but I do need to pick out a buckle, like one button for the back. Sorry for the disarray of this. I organized it twice, but the kitten knocked it down before, and that could be cute, but I don't know. I have all of this pinned. This is just the front. Not super excited about any of this, but these were supposed to come yesterday, and they came today, and I just got them from outside. All super cute. Not that I need to be buying more patterns, but you know, sailor dress, wrap dress, as if I don't have already a couple wrap dress patterns. This is really cute. Both views. Look at the flap details on this one. Super cute. This I thought was overalls until I turned it over and looked at the line drawings. And no, they're separates, but they're very cute. They look like overalls. And some clothes for my goose. So, yeah. I'm starting things off with a skirt, which I don't usually do, but I think I might have said this before, but I needed to get the skirt done first so I could give it as much time as I could for it to hang, so the hem would be better. And I believe I stay stitched this time, and I am just sewing those pleats down. And then I have to do this weird little L-shaped maneuver thing. Well, not yet apparently, but I have to sew the front to the side front. And then next I just let the fabric lay where I want it to lay and connected. I had these 2 dots marked. And I have to sew from one dot and then turn to the other like an L shaped, like I started saying before. I don't know, it's kinda strange. I kind of forgot how to do it, so I did, I think, the back of the skirt first, and then I recorded this. I think this is the front of the skirt, because I could not remember how I put it together. So there's that. And it's just such a weird little chunk there. But now that I have that, I have it folded so that I don't even know how to describe it. It is what it is. And I just gotta sew across that, and that connects the yoke and makes it into one piece. Which, once you get to that, it's not so bad. That's about the hardest part of this pattern. That little intersection where the skirt pieces connect. But this is the side seam, and then I was able to just let it hang for the rest of the day until night when I connected it to the bodice. But that's a story for later, I reckon. Now I am moving on to doing the bodice, and surprisingly there was 2 darts in the front per side at the bottom. I guess that would make it a total of 6 darts in the front and then 4 in the back. But there was 2 at the waist on each side, and then in the back it was 1 on each side, which I thought was interesting. Usually if there's 2 in the front, there's 2 in the back. But like I've said before, this machine sews through rayon like a dream. And these are my shoulder seams, I believe. And more shoulder seams. I don't know, I decided to go on a side quest while I was filming this. I was like, oh, I have enough time, and I also lost the card for the wedding. And then my sister, she bought me one, and then I went out to visit her because I wasn't going to see her the next day. And then I visited her cat, and then I was gonna go to Walmart, but then it was really late. And then I didn't go to Walmart. And I came home and still had to do the dress. And it was just a whole moment. And then I was like, man, I was too confident I just shouldn't have left the house. I still haven't found that card, but it's not that serious. I thought for sure I would find the card right after the wedding, and I still haven't, but I haven't actually looked, so. But this is just the facing that I'm putting on around the neck. Whenever I do the understitching, I was able to just go right over all those little corners and everything without stopping, which is kind of fun. I think in the future, I would like to put a couple more buttons on the back because it gapes a little bit and it doesn't look super cute that way. So I think a couple more buttons would make it look more intentional. I just tacked it halfway up so it wouldn't gape as much, but it's just a whole different kind of gape because now there's like a tack in the middle of the gape. So I don't know. Now I am doing the underarm seams to the blouse. But once I connected the top to the skirt, I put the zipper in and then I went to bed. I did do a little bit of hand sewing before then. I think I sewed the button on the back and the loop. I did the hems on the sleeve, that sort of thing. And then, oh, and I made the bows and tacked the bows on. I forgot about that. And made the belt. And then I went to bed, leaving the hem for the morning to give it more time to hang. And that was really special because I had to show Daniel last minute how to mark my hem so I could trim it. So that was an interesting time. He did a good job, all things considered. I think overall it is cute. Though it does have its issues. It's a little big. I have a lot of room up here, so I think maybe even if I just take it in a little bit under here, that could help. But I also think I should have used a heavier interfacing because these just want to roll outward. And that's not super cute. And this fabric overall just has more stretch to it just because of the fabric type than when I first made the dress. But it is cute. And if I resolved some of the issues with the bodice, I think it would be much cuter. And also, the skirt is so heavy that it pulls the bodice out of shape. So I had to sew a piece of ribbon to the inside of the waist. That was my waist size to keep it from growing a bunch. But other than that, I do like it. But I think I do need to do some work on it to get it a little stabler up top. I also put a metal zipper in, which I think stretched when I put it in, I think I stretched the fabric a little bit too. So I think that also contributed to the bodice growing. But I did not have time to do any real alterations last night. I went to bed at 2 and then I woke up at 7:45 to do the hem. And I ended up just doing a hem on the machine. But I couldn't mark it myself because my hem puffer, I couldn't see it very good because there's all kinds of white details around the flowers and I couldn't tell what was from the hem puffer and what wasn't. So Daniel got to learn how to mark the hem for me. And he did pretty good, besides being kind of slow when I was kind of pinched for time. So my hem isn't as, because I usually prefer to do a hem like this on a nicer dress by hand, so it's more invisible. But 2 inches up, I just have stitching. But yeah, I do like the fit of the original better, even though it was not graded properly and it's a little tight. But I like the more fitted look, and this ends up more slouchy, which I kind of don't really like. So I kind of wish I hadn't added so much to the shoulder on the pattern. And I only did that because the one I made before ended up a little short in the waist because my bust size changed along with everything else. So I figured, oh, if I add there, we'll fix that, except I didn't take into account the extra elasticity in this fabric. There's no elastic in it at all. It's just the way the weave of the fiber is working because it's kind of crinkled. So I'm glad I did iron it before I cut it out, otherwise I probably wouldn't have had enough width. And also that kept it from being a little too scrunched up, because that really would have grown then. But I really love the pleated detail on the skirt, and I didn't remember how to do it, so I had to, once I remembered how to do it, it's not hard to do, but trying to remember how to do it is the issue. And I would love a skirt with this not even this fabric, this in this pattern, just a skirt, no bodice, except for the fact that it's still going to take like 4 yards. So there's that. Also, it's just a lot of skirt. I definitely think this dress could have been better, but with the time I had, I think it's not bad. And this neckline just ended up bigger. There was just too much in the differences between the fabric. So if I would have made it as is, it probably would have barely fit. Like, it would have fit tightly like the original one. Because you figure I made this 2 years ago? Yeah, 2 years ago, and I'm not the same size I was 2 years ago. So, especially with the extra stretch, it might have fit better than the other one anyway. But I won't know because I didn't do that. But I think with a stabler fabric, those alterations would have been better. But anyway, that's all I have for this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like, and if you'd like to see more summer sewing, please subscribe. If you'd like to see what I'm up to day to day, feel free to follow me on Instagram at Sarah V Sews Vintage. Thank you again for watching, and see you next time.